Hello, everyone. Welcome to the UpRev Ninja Podcast. If this is your first time listening, thanks for joining us. This show is produced each week with the single intent of discovering the tips, tricks, hacks, and lessons learned from our guests that has catapulted them into living the best version of themselves. Join your host, Tom Hudson, as he continues his search for the best methods to UpRev his life. Now, let's dive into the show.
Today's guest is Phillip. She's a counseling psychotherapist and clinical hypnotherapist based in Australia, and she's working around the world using technology. Dr. Karen empowers others using their own inbuilt ability to heal and change by utilizing the power of our subconscious minds. So thank you and welcome Karen Phillip to the UpRev Ninja Podcast. Hey, today I've got Karen Phillip on the UpRev Ninja Podcast. Welcome, Karen.
Hello, how are we, Tom? Lovely to be here and join you.
I am super excited to talk to you today. I checked out your website and I'm like, ooh, I need that. I've done that. Ooh, that was not a good memory. So I've already read your bio out to my audience, but I would love for you to share with me and my audience, just like, who are you and how did you get to where you are today?
Well, I live in Australia and I started about 18 years ago as a counsellor and psychotherapist. Did my basic training, the degree that we need to get. Started working and realised that the array of issues that were coming in, my training really didn't equip me for adequately. So I started to expand learning a lot more, doing many more courses, a lot more reading. And I found naturally that a lot of not just individuals but couples and families were gravitating towards me in my practice. So I then did my master's degree in family studies. I did a PhD in sociology, and then I realised after that there was still an area that I felt my clients were stuck in. There were certain things that I was assisting them with, but as far as I was concerned, my help was just that little bit too slow. So a little bit more research went in and I discovered hypnotherapy. So I undertook a course in clinical hypnotherapy. And that has become also a big part of my business ever since. And I find that once clients come in for one or two sessions and we really unpack what's going on, we can usually speed up, if you like, their recovery process through support by using hypnotherapy. Now, my practice was getting so busy and I gravitated into stop smoking and weight loss and reducing anxiety, removing baggage from past issues, that we ended up recording a lot of the sessions and putting them online for my virtualhypnotherapy.com, which has now gone worldwide, and we receive emails regularly, which is so great to hear people's feedback that they've been able to actually sit at home rather than creating anxiety, making an appointment to go somewhere, waiting for the appointment, travelling to an office, hopefully not seen because a number of high-profile people actually do these sessions. They're able to do it in the comfort of their own home, and they're able to keep the session and use it again if they ever need it. They don't have to pay again. They don't have to make another appointment and wait. It's theirs to keep forever. And we've found the sessions going so incredibly successful and well. And even though I still get a number of people in my rooms for occasional personal sessions if they're local, and I do the odd Skype session for people overseas as well, we've had a huge influx of those using the virtual hypnotherapy sessions, which has just been fabulous.
Well, I can be completely honest with you. One of the challenges I've had in my life, I'm 40 years old, and yeah, I totally get. If I can download it, first off, I'm in technology, so that's a bonus. Two, it's convenient. I travel a ton, so it would be nice to listen on a plane or something like that if I'm able to. But here, this is the kicker. I have white coat phobia, so I don't like doctors. And I actually work in the medical field to top that off. But this has been a challenge for me my entire life, and about a year ago, I started going to therapy, and I've gone to a couple of therapists, and I'm a lot better than I was. It's crazy though. I just I don't know honestly where the fear came from. I'm I've got ideas, but it's funny how something like that can, I was 40 years old basically before I really went to the doctor, you know?
Wow. Well, you're lucky that you didn't need to regularly go to the doctor. But look, that you may find that is odd because you don't know anyone else that experiences this. But let me assure you that there are a range of people that experience a wide range of issues, and we all feel we're slightly unusual. Look, I've had people come in with phobias, and we've got a really good phobia cure on the session in the virtual sessions. But it works for people, the normal things like dentists and needles and heights. But I've had people through with issues of, I have had one person with a white coat issue before, believe it or not, I have. Frogs are another one that's a little bit unusual. People with frogs, birds, and a lady came in, she had a phobia of birds, and another older lady came in with a phobia of water. She was never able to have a shower with the shower recess over her head. She had to have it under her chin. She was not able to have a bath. She was able to go up to her ankles, but then other than that, she freaked out. So there's all sorts of things, but it always comes from what we call an ISE, which is an initial sensitizing event. So something happened sometime in your life, whether it's a very young child or a little older child or adolescent, where you connected a fear or a bad outcome with that event. And then our mind takes that and escalates it and connects it to all sorts of things that we don't want it connected with. But using hypnotherapy, how can I describe it? It's a natural process in which your mind is more receptive to positive suggestions while releasing the negative feelings, and it aids the mind's ability to rapidly integrate new skills, new strategies and strengths. And it's an alternative healing method, if you like, that's used to create, it's a subconscious change in the form of new responses, new thoughts, new attitudes, behaviours and feelings. And it really gently releases blocks and fears, creating a new inner belief to make changes to the way you think, the way you feel and the way you behave. So it's a very gentle and natural way for us to overcome so many of the issues and problems that we're often faced with during our life.
Well, I loved what you said earlier about how you saw the, traditional therapy wasn't fast enough. And I know I have to applaud you because I think, there's several types of people in this world, but, there's ones, that truly do want to help people. And then there's ones that want to make their pocketbook thicker and, sometimes they go hand in hand, and there's no judgment. Well, maybe there's a little judgment, but there's not any judgment in that statement. But the fact that you saw like what I'm doing isn't working, or it's not working as fast as I would like. And that's what this podcast is all about, trying to be the best version of yourself. And you actively sought out to say, hey, what can I do better? What can I, what could I do different in my practice to make it better for people faster and to enable them to get along with their life in a healthier, more positive, happy manner? And I applaud you for that. So thank you.
Oh gosh, I mean that's my whole outcome. I'm very fortunate. We're very financially secure in our lives. So it's a matter of a lot of people say, sort of, do you want more clients? And it's like, well, no, I don't really need to have people coming in, but I choose to do that. And I have many debates, if you like, with colleagues that often do struggle to obtain many clients, whereas I have a waiting list weeks long usually. And I have these, we'll call them debates, not an argument, but a debate, that they like their clients to, they need at least 6 sessions or they need at least 10 sessions. And I'll say, why? Why? You're telling them that unless they come for their 6 sessions, that they're not going to be fixed for 6 sessions. Well, for a start, they're not broken. There's nothing wrong with them. All they need is some guidance and support to help them acquire and achieve what they desire. And the audacity for therapists, as far as I'm concerned, to tell someone that, in the first session, well, you need to come for 6 sessions. I get very irate and quite disturbed about, because they're telling the person that there's something wrong with them and they're not going to be fixed for so many sessions.
I love you.
And I just find that so offensive. It's like, don't you think that human, and I believe it completely, that human beings have their own natural ability to heal themselves, to find the answers and to resolve their issues. We just need to know how to do it sometimes.
I love the
and once
passion.
we're able to do that, yes, I am rather passionate, I must say.
No, I love it. This is great. I mean, this is I love it. I really do. This is I can tell we've connected with you, and this is fantastic. And so it's great. And thank you.
No, I believe in people. I believe in human beings. I believe we're kind, we're good. And I also firmly believe that we have the abilities, and I know what we have in our subconscious mind, and we have all the answers and all the abilities to achieve what it is we want. It's just that most of us in this day and age don't know how to do it, or we're convinced, thank you pharmaceutical companies and media, that we need a pill to, like, people come in on antidepressants, and I'll go, well, are they helping? Well, yeah, I think so. Okay, well, what's the reason you're here? Oh, well, because I feel terrible, or I'm considering, hurting myself, self-harm or even suicide. And I'll go, well, apart from the antidepressant that you're on, are they really working for you? Because why are you feeling the way you're doing? And they suddenly realise, and very quickly realise, that, you know what, I'm masking the symptom. I'm not actually addressing any issue that's created it. And that's where hypnotherapy can really help. Like some of the sessions that we use both on virtual and in the room, which are pretty much similar. There's one that I do for removing baggage. And so many people have been raised by, let's call it, interesting parents at times, or we've had perhaps letdowns in our relationship, or we've made judgments that on reflection we possibly could have made differently. And so we're left carrying around this weight, this baggage, the if-onlys, the what-ifs, and we cart them around in our life, and it affects our current life and our current relationship. So we have a session that we do, which I call Remove Baggage. I'm not very imaginative, so that's what I call it. And it takes you on a journey without telling you what's the problem, without telling you what to think, without telling you what to do. And we leave the person's mind, the subconscious mind, available to make those changes, to explore their own issues, and to remove and get rid of that weight, that baggage they're carrying around, to allow them to step back into a life, into their life, freer, feeling lighter, more able to go forward and make the decisions that they want without being impaired and weighed down by past issues. So, Karen, and that is a big one.
Yeah, no, and I've been there, and obviously, there's going to be many more things I come across I don't even know that exist right now, which I'm looking forward to.
Absolutely.
So, what about you personally, Karen? Like, what got you into this field? What drove you into going down this path?
Well, I married very young. I was just turned 21. My family life was okay, but mum and dad were very conflictual, and I wasn't particularly happy living in a conflictual home. I met a young man when I was 17 years old, nearly 18, and he came from a lovely, stable family, had lots of friends. And I gravitated to him, we connected, and all of a sudden he proposed and we got married. And I was just 21 and I thought, oh, this is great. I've got a new family. I've got my own sort of family. There was no conflict. Unfortunately, after the marriage, he somewhat changed. I didn't know at the time, this is going back quite a few years ago, 35, nearly 40 years ago, he was actually a narcissistic personality, which I knew nothing about and didn't realise. And a lot of people, I guess, listening to this who have experienced a narcissistic personality will be able to relate very easily. But when we married, I then became, I guess, his property. I would have to do what he wanted, speak the way he demanded. Even when we had our first child about 4 years later, and I kept thinking, oh, it's okay. This is obviously what marriage is. Mum and dad would argue all the time, so I guess this is the way it is. And being so young and I guess naive, I didn't realise that there was a difference and this wasn't actually the normal. So I had three children within 4 years, quickly, only because there was a few issues going on with the way that we were trying to alleviate not having children so quickly, but it didn't work, so to speak. So we had the three children, and I was basically a single parent. So he didn't really interact with the children too much. He was very critical of everything I did, the way I looked, everything. And I thought, okay, well, this is my life. This is the way it's going to be. And I was married to this man for 18 years, and I could feel myself getting further and further nailed down, if you like. And there was one moment that I just thought, I can't do this. I'm either going to consider knocking myself off, like killing myself, or I had to run away, or I just wanted to bury myself in the ground and never come out. It was just awful within the home. It wasn't violent at all. He was threatening, but he was very psychologically abusive, yelling and demeaning all the time. And I could see it starting to affect my children. And my daughter would see me cry and she'd say, Mummy, why are you here? Why do you stay?
Wow.
Daddy's just being so mean to you. And I go, oh, it's okay, sweetheart. Sometimes people say mean things. They don't really mean it. So long story short, I ended up leaving. I basically left for my own sanity and mental health. And I went to a counsellor. And it's like, I don't know what to do. And I went to counselling for probably a couple of months, every couple of weeks. And she did a therapy which we call Gestalt, where it was what we call an empty chair technique. We sat in the chair where I was married to this man, and I sat in another chair where I had left the relationship. And when I sat back into the chair in the marriage, I felt like I couldn't breathe. I was suffocating. And she just said to me, you've got your answer.
Right, yeah.
And I didn't know whether I should go back. And I thought, you know what, I've got my answer. I thought that was amazing. I'd struggled and struggled for months. What should I do? And in that one moment, I thought, oh, my God, I know the answer. I don't need to go to someone to tell me. I know the answer. I just needed to understand and realize how to find that answer. And this therapist helped me. So I probably left about another 5 to 6 years. I redeveloped, regrew, started a business, did all of this. And I thought, you know what, I want to study. I did try to study with him, but every time I started psychology, he found out, he stopped it. I started a law degree, he found out, I stopped it. I started a Bachelor of Arts degree, he found out, stopped it. So I couldn't do any more study. He was that controlling.
I'm so sorry.
As soon as I left, no, that's fine. It allowed me to develop strength and resilience as a person.
Absolutely, and it's who you are today. I mean, and I believe in the positive. To go through that, and, man.
Oh, look, a lot of women, unfortunately, do go through that, and I see a lot of them in my room in the counselling, which I guess in a way I'm fortunate because I can identify and I know where they are, and I can also help them escape from that. But we need to assist to set them up financially. That's the big one.
Right.
Accommodation and finances is a big one. And I was very fortunate that I had a good job and I was able to afford to relocate myself and my children. So that was very, very helpful, whereas a lot of women aren't. I have some women in here that I say, well, how much does your husband earn? How much is in your bank account? I don't know.
Right.
Okay. So they're so controlling over that. Whereas because I was the worker and my then husband didn't do a lot of work, I knew exactly how much money there was in the bank. And my mum, because of her unhappy marriage, always said to me, whatever you do, put X amount of dollars aside from your pay into your own account, just in case.
Right.
So I did have that couple of $1,000s put aside, which, of course, I needed. But during the therapy session and after I started to do the studies and work as a counsellor, that's when I think I mentioned before that I realised that this whole process can be made so much faster for people if we not only just do the counselling psychotherapy with them, but we can actually tap in and utilise their own strengths and confidence that they have forgotten they've got, or they've been too scared to use, or they haven't been permitted to use for so long. And then I found, after gravitating through the hypnotherapy courses and starting to practice, that I was finding a lot of people with issues with smoking, with weight loss, that they were struggling, feeling that a cigarette is controlling me, the food is controlling me, my partner is controlling me. And through the use of the hypnotherapy session, using the ability of our own subconscious mind, we can affect very fast changes in the way we think, feel and behave for our benefit. So rather than going for many sessions, and even with weight loss, the groups, every couple of weeks you go to a group session and you do this and you do that. When I developed the weight loss session in virtual hypnotherapy that I also use in the room, it's one session and it re-empowers the person. It takes the control away from those external things and it gives the control back to you. The same as with smoking. People think, the ads will tell us, I know here in Australia, I'm not sure about the United States, that, smoking, it's hard to stop. That's one of our main ads in our quit line. It's hard to stop. And it's like, stop telling people this
You're
rubbish.
just reinforcing that behavior and that thought process, yeah.
Exactly. So, and we do know that cigarette companies fund a lot of these commercials.
Of course.
We also know that they actually, they own Nicorette, Nicobate, all of the stop smoking products because, they've got a vested interest, obviously, and they don't really want people to stop buying their products. So we've got all of this false information that's going on out there. And it's like, you know what, guys, when people come in or do the session, and I've heard from people on email to say, I've tried with Champix, I've tried with patches, I've tried to stop smoking with this and that, and it didn't work. But wow, I did your session and I watched your video, and even before I closed my eyes to relax, to do the hypnosis part of it, I felt strong and in control over that cigarette. So that cigarette was never going to control me again. And it's like, wow, that is absolutely fantastic, because it's true. There's nothing addictive about a cigarette, for instance. All nicotine is out of our system in less than 48 hours. Depending on the size of the person, it could be 24 to 36 hours. There is no nicotine. So therefore, there is no cravings, because the nicotine isn't making you. It is simply the habitual motion which we address in the video session, and then we re-embed that in the hypnotherapy session. And it's the same with people trying to lose weight. They feel that, if I open up a packet of what we've got here, Tim Tam biscuits, but say it's Oreos or a large block of chocolate, I have to eat all of it. I go, why do you have to? Because it's there. I just sort of have to. I think I'm addicted to chocolate. And it's like, no, you're not addicted to chocolate. And then I might sort of say to them, if you went to the doctor and they said one more bite of chocolate, your liver would explode, you would die, what would you do? Oh, well, I probably wouldn't eat it.
Right.
I go, yes, because that's the choice that you're making. And we're just making choices that are not in our best interest right now. So let's assist you to make the choices and get empowered to really use those choices that are going to benefit you. And I do a session on what we call desires. And the way I do it is I stack what we call our common desires. Now, the first desire we often have is the alarm goes off. Oh, we don't want to get out of bed. We just want to stay in bed. But you know what? We don't give in to that. We get up and we go to work. We've got a desire. Sometimes if we've got a husband or wife, they may not listen to us, or they may drive us crazy. And we want to just give them a bit of a hit over the back of the head to say, for goodness sakes, like, listen to me, or please do what I'm asking. If we have children, it's like, oh my goodness, I just want to give you a little kick up the behind sometimes just to do what I am asking you to do. We may have a boss or customers at work that drive us crazy, and we sometimes feel like throwing something at them, but we don't. So we have desire after desire that we don't give into. And then we have food or cigarettes, and that's just another one. Right. So we take that one and we pop it over with all those other desires that you have control over. And then people start to realize, wow, you know what, maybe I do have some control over this behavior. And it's like, yes, in fact, you really do. And you do and we go through a different process with anxiety. But again, we give people back that control within their own emotions and feelings, so they can very quickly reduce that feeling of anxiety or even panic attack, and enable them and allow them to regain that control over self. And that's what I'm all about. People have this ability. They just need to know how to tap into it and use it.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Like, I in theory and logic, I know this, but the example that you kind of wrapped up there with, yeah, you don't do that to your boss or your customers, clients, your spouse, but yet when the ice cream or how many shrimps can I eat or whatever it is, it's never ending. That's wow. I've never thought about it that way. That's brilliant. Thank you. So, Karen, what about you? Like, what a transformation that you went through, and it's just a fantastic story. And thank you for sharing that. What do you feel now holds you back from trying to become a better version of who you are?
I personally, I don't find anything now holds me back.
Okay.
It did. My husband actually, I've got a husband I upgraded about 16 years ago. He's the most incredible, amazing human being on the planet. And I swore I would never, ever marry again or even get really involved in a relationship because I was a little bit too frightened to do that. But when I met him, he was like no one I'd ever met. He is still to this very day, I fall deeper in love with that man every single day. He's just the most iconic individual I've ever met. And we have an amazing relationship, very, very happy. He's got 3 children to a previous relationship. I have 3 children. So we have a large family and everyone gets on great. We've never had an argument in 16 years, never argued and never will, because we've learnt to discuss, to have our own opinions, but to respect the opinion of the other person. And I do a lot with couples and a lot with communication ability, which is the reason that a lot of people do argue. They haven't discovered yet the way to speak and to hear what the other person is saying. And I say to everybody, look, that is a behaviour that perhaps you don't like in yourself or someone else, but what's the reason behind that behaviour? We don't just get up in one morning and say, I'm going to be horrible today or I'm going to be mean today. There is always a reason behind any behaviour. And when we're curious enough to find out what that reason is, either within ourselves or the other person, then it opens up a whole new world of understanding. And I think that's why the two of us have never had an argument, even though we have differences of opinion. But I don't anymore, and I used to obviously have limitations, as I think most of us do. And even though every now and again something will creep in, oh, can I do this? Am I good enough to do that? And we have this almost inbuilt self-doubt. Thank you, parents, usually.
Absolutely.
But I've been able to, like I do a lot of radio. I've done a lot of television work. I still do television from time to time, not as much. I'm slightly a little bit over it, just going in for all the hair and the makeup for your 5 minutes. It's just like, oh, my goodness, I'm just slightly done with this. But that was great. And people would say, wow, are you nervous sitting in front of a camera? And it was like, you know what? No, I'm actually really comfortable sitting on a stage in front of 1,000 people or even in front of a camera on national television. I'm actually incredibly comfortable. And I think the reason for that is because I know my subject so well. I've lived it. I basically live and breathe it because I do it every day. And I'm just so comfortable and happy with what I'm able to do and the support I'm able to give people. The only thing that I would like to do better and more is to take every child in distress and give them a better life, to take every person that is living a tough life or is on the street and house them and give them a job and give them good clothes and furniture and education. That is what I still want to do.
Yeah, well, hey, I think you've got the power, and you have so much passion, Karen. I can feel it coming through my headphones. It's fantastic. So, what about? Man, I could ask this question a couple of different ways, but either relationships or just people by themselves. If they're struggling with something, or a couple's struggling, what kind of tips and tricks? I mean, I know and I'm not looking for a silver bullet. I'm not looking for, oh, you take this one magic pill I know that's not the answer. But, how do you and your husband have such good communication skills and you don't have these arguments? What can you pass on? What kind of wisdom can you give us to take away from this?
Well, I often ask them first, what was it that attracted the two of you to each other? What was it about the other person? And after we get through some of the perhaps superfluous things, it's like, okay, what about the way that you connected, the way you communicated? Describe your partner. What's the person that they really are? And sometimes people even get stuck with that. So I'll start to add a few words like, are they a kind person? Are they a generous person? Are they a loving person, considerate? Are they hardworking? Are they funny? Are they a good partner? Are they a good child to their parent? Are they a good parent to your children? So we find out a lot of the positives. And I go, okay, so what I hear that you're doing is concentrating on those few little negatives, but we're forgetting about all of these positive attributes and the beauty within the other person. Now, sometimes the person themselves can't actually even find the positives within themselves. If they come in individually, I go, well, describe you. Oh, well, I'm, 6 foot tall and I've got blonde hair. I go, no. What is it about you? Who are you? And often they'll go, I don't know. I don't know who I am anymore. I've lost me. So we start to unpack that, and very quickly we can rediscover who they are and all the attributes that they do have. And sometimes it's almost like an epiphany. It's like, you know what? I am a good, kind person. I am a hardworking, loving person. I am a pretty good mum or dad. And it's like, okay, so we build on that. And if it's the couple that come in after we unpack some of the good and the bad, so to speak, we find out what the reason is behind some of the words that they say and the things that they're doing. And usually if we're angry at our partner for something, it's like because – and often it comes down to, you're not hearing me, this is hurting me, or this is making me feel uncomfortable or less important in our relationship. And I feel angry about that, so I'm going to yell at you. But what I really want is to take you in my arms and say, sweetheart, listen to me, feel what I'm feeling, hear what I'm hearing, see what I'm seeing. But you don't, and I get angry at that. So then we start to figure out what it is that each of them need in their relationship and from the other person. And once we can actually understand that, we can start giving them to them. Because we always think that, well, I'm a person, I know what I think and feel, so I'm right. And obviously they must as well. But it's like, no, we don't know. We don't, I keep saying, leave your mind reading hat in the wash and put on your other hat to say, I don't know what my partner's really thinking or feeling at this time. So I'm going to politely and kindly and respectfully inquire, and I'm not going to judge anything they say. I'm going to listen, I'm going to process, and I'm going to respond. I'm not going to judge and react. So we teach them, particularly couples, sometimes the children as well, how to start processing differently, how to start listening without judgment, and how to start responding rather than reacting to what they hear.
That's powerful.
It works.
Yeah, no, and it's my wife and I do some similar exercises. Yet, I've fallen back into my old habits occasionally. I'll instantly go to that place of, it's not fear or shame. It's just like, oh, she didn't hear what I said, and I'll get angry. Or I'm from Texas, so I'm very stoic, like John Wayne. You don't share your feelings, so I just close off. But I know better than that. And as soon as I sense it, she senses it immediately, and she's really good. She's like, you just shut off what's going on. And I'm like, and I haven't even realized I've done that yet. And then we can have a discussion. But it's amazing. Like, I didn't realize that was my paradigm up until so I'm 40 now, but I was about 33 when I realized that was my paradigm. And then I was like, oh my gosh, there's this whole world of emotions that I didn't know existed. And it's been brilliant. It's been a transformation.
Oh, look, yeah, and emotions can be quite scary.
Oh,
to
yeah.
face. And if we've if we've grown up in a household with mum and dad, and without being gender biased, but I will, it's generally the way it works, older dads have often not been able to open up because their dads never did. So that was something that we didn't do. And we've been raised seeing mum and dad, mum being nurturing and dad being the worker and the firm and the strong, but not really communicating with each other. So we've, particularly boys, have never learned the capacity, if you like, to really open up and talk, because as children, we've never seen a man really do that. I mean, the occasional dad would do it, but the majority of dads never did because they never learned how to do it. So hopefully through the generations, our sons are starting to understand that, so dad is talking to mum, dad is, apart from occasionally getting angry, dad is looking sad and is talking about the way he's feeling. And that doesn't mean, as a lot of boys and men feel, that it's a sign of weakness. And I am very mindful of advising both the men and the women, when a man shows his vulnerability, or when anyone really shows their vulnerability, that is the greatest strength that we can display to anyone. And it is difficult to display our vulnerability to anyone, let alone our partner that thinks the world of us, and we want them to see that we're strong and resilient people. And then when we're able to develop that strength to show that vulnerability, that is where the building starts.
I couldn't agree more. And I even put this in my first email to you. November 2013, I read Brene Brown's book, Daring Greatly, and it's all about vulnerability. She's got an excellent TED Talk, and it had sat on my bookshelf probably for a year and a half. The day I picked it up, I believe I read it within a few days, easily within a week. And I was sitting there like, where has this book been my entire life? Because I was exactly that person. I was afraid to share. I thought if I shared my feelings and opened up to be vulnerable, I thought it was a sign of weakness. I thought people that did that were, again, using genders, and this is how I was raised, social conditioning. TV taught this to me, that I was weak, I was, a girl, and it was just all these negative thoughts. But I read that book and the light bulb went off, and I started, it was a paradigm shift. So, it's good. And that's why I created the show, because I know I'm not the only one that needs
you're one
that.
Of everyone.
Yeah. And
gosh, yes.
And people need to hear, this message. So.
Oh, look, they really do. And my latest book it's called OMG, We're Getting Married. And the reason I wrote that, it's for couples that are about to get married or recently married or even living together. And I was getting couples in, as I still do, obviously, get couples in after just a few years of marriage that are in marriage distress. And we talk about things, and I'll say, did you not discuss this prior to getting married? And that was like, well, no. Well, we didn't think it was going to be a problem. And then I started to realize, you know what? People don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
So I wrote a book called OMG, We're Getting Married. And what that book is about, we'd have first few chapters are just about arranging the wedding guest list, the bucks and hens night, those sorts of little things that can really add a lot of stress to a couple when they're planning their wedding. But the whole thing is, it's all about the wedding, and we forget to actually look at the marriage.
Right.
And we have a divorce rate, beg your pardon, probably similar to the United States. Nearly 50% of our marriages fail, and most of them within 6 to 8 years. And it's reiterated over and over to me in the room when I see couples come in that they haven't actually discussed things like children even, believe it or not.
Right.
How many? How far apart? And not just are we having them, but Who's going to be the main carer? Are they going to go to daycare? What about mum? What about my career? Isn't it as important as yours? Because I went to university as well. I went to college as well. And are we going to live near your parents or my parents? Who's going to look after the children? Are we going to send them to private or public school? You know, who's going to be called out from work if the child's unwell at daycare or at school? Is it always me, always mum?
Right.
What about dad? Who's going to get them to sport? Who's going to do this? You know, who's going to look after the home? I mean, if we're both working, Dad, why is it that I come home and do the housework and look after the kids and the cooking and the shopping? What about you? Oh, well, I do the lawns or I do the maintenance.
Right.
It's like, well, that doesn't work. And where there's an imbalance, there's an imbalance. So the book is all about, you know, children. It's about having about the arguments that we have and how to allay those. It's about dealing with the in-laws, which in itself can sometimes be an interesting exercise with many people. It's about planning the wedding and you know, where you're going to live, and it's a lot about finance to get on the same page. A lot of times one partner will be a spender and the other partner wants to be a saver. So it's about understanding each person and your partner and then coming to an agreement without conflict so you can go forward in your relationship better prepared for your marriage, even though we're very well prepared for our wedding. So I really urge anyone that's getting married or that has had a failed relationship and wants to start a new relationship more equipped and better to read that book, OMG, We're Getting Married. It's got so many helpful points that I go through in the counselling room, and you can, you know, download it online for, I don't know, whatever, $10, whatever they are online, and it'll save you a lot of therapy sessions,
Yep,
a lot of money. And most people don't realise that when they do separate or divorce, they lose 50% or more of everything.
Right.
Unfortunately, men lose generally a lot more than that. But we lose not only, and that's just not the finances and the assets, it's part of ourself.
Absolutely.
Because we've invested ourself into that relationship, and part of ourself is left within that relationship that's dissolved. And that takes us time to heal. So as far as I'm concerned, why chase the process to fix a relationship or to manage the fallout when you can set yourself up in the initial stages to be well prepared and have the answers that you need for issues that are going to be raised, and they will throughout every marriage.
No, I have not read the book, but my wife and I did a very similar exercise before we even moved in. We had a series of questions that we went through. We did it. You know, I answered the questions, she answered hers, and we came together, compared notes, and discussed our differences and discussed our agreements. We also did an exercise of like 3-year, 5-year, 10-year. Where do you see yourself? Where do you see us? And because that, like, oh, well, I imagine I'm picking up my, you know, our 3 kids from soccer practice, you know, whatever your story is, right? Mm-hmm. And yeah, answering questions is one thing, but when you start to write that story and then she wrote her story and we compared, that's where, wow, you know, and honestly, we were actually very, very similar, but it was still such a good exercise. And one of her very good friends was the one that told us about this and kind of guided us through the process. But I mean, I was 39, 38, you know, when we went through that. And, you know, yeah, that's something, you know, they should teach in school. You know, it's
I
like
agree.
How to balance a checkbook, and here's how to have a relationship. You know, that stuff.
That's just it. We believe that we communicate, but I say to people all the time, no, we learn to talk, we can hear, but that doesn't mean that we've learnt or developed the ability to communicate with each other. And the fact is, if you look at the world, if you look at community, society, relationship breakdowns, it's clearly obvious that we, in fact, have yet to develop the ability to correctly communicate with each other. And I think if that was, not only should it be taught at schools, it really should be taught within the home. But unfortunately, so many adults, mums and dads, have not been able to learn that skill either.
Right.
So we need to start doing it at as an earlier age as possible. Certainly there are a number of books, but I agree with you, Tom, that we need to have something in the school curriculum, a part of the English assignment or the English essay of how do we hear someone? How do we listen to someone? What do you do? Get kids to write down. Oh, well, I listen to their words. Okay, that's a great start. But what's the meaning of those words? Where does the meaning come from? Where did they develop that meaning for themselves?
Right.
So once we start to have a look a little bit deeper into, oh, I don't know, I've just heard the words. It's like, yes. And if you go into a relationship and just hear words, you're going to have conflict.
Absolutely.
There's going to be issues. So I do agree with you that we need to have some sort of communication ability, but we need to train our teachers, particularly our English teachers, not just for punctuation and grammatical correctness, but we need to actually teach them the ability to teach communication, which is a completely different genre from what they're learning at school.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Karen, I really appreciate this. This is very enlightening. I've taken away numerous things. I've just like looking at the notes, and we talked about, I don't take a lot of notes, but I was like, ooh, there's a good, like so many golden nuggets in this. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to share?
Not really. I think we've covered most of it. It's just that for people that are listening, if they do have any issues, problems, whether it be from a relationship breakdown, anxiety, wanting to stop smoking, drinking, gambling, lose weight, any of those things, they're never alone. They're not alone. And there is support there. And if they jump onto virtualhypnotherapy.com, there are so many sessions that are extremely cheap. They start from like $15 that people can get and keep, and that can really help their mind sort out the issues that they're struggling with, to give them more clarity and understanding, so they have the enrichment and the empowerment to make those choices that are right for them.
Wow.
And they can do this. They look, I see people struggling all the time, and you know what? We don't need to. We just don't need to, but we just need to find out how to do things differently. Yeah. And I'm hoping through virtual hypnotherapy, that is the key for many people, that they can unlock that door and walk through using the ability of their own mind to address and allay those issues that they've carried around for far too long, and live a happier life within themselves, a happier life for those around them, a more empowered life, a more confident life. And once we can develop that within ourselves, we're unstoppable.
That's fantastic, and I'm in agreement. Well, Karen, thank you very much for your time and for sharing your journey with us, your story, and I just love the passion that you have, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
It's been my absolute pleasure, Tom. Anytime at all. More than happy to speak with you. It was lovely.
I really enjoyed talking with Karen tonight. So yeah, I really think that she's like the master of reframing and positioning things into a very logical manner. One of the examples that she talks about is a person that just has to eat all the cookies and they say they can't control themselves. And then how she turns that over into, you get upset with your boss or your wife or your kids. You don't do harmful things to them. You often bite your tongue, and you know what's good and healthy, so you don't do it. So why can you do it in one situation but not another? I thought that was a really awesome discussion that we had around that, because I've never looked at something like that. And I think the key takeaway there is that can apply to so many different aspects of your life, diet, smoking, drinking, or the inverse, like not exercising. And yeah, I just really appreciate her take on this and her sharing that lesson with us.
Thanks for listening to the UpRev Ninja podcast with your host, Tom Hudson. Navigate to our website at uprev.ninja today, where you will find additional resources to help you discover the best version of you. While you're there, join our newsletter and join the discussion on your favorite social media platforms. We've got some awesome guests lined up to share with us how they are becoming the best versions of themselves. Again, thank you for listening. Now it's time to go out and uprev your life.